In this question we have 5 fractions that have to be ordered from smallest to biggest. As we can see, this is going to be made difficult because the denominator on the bottom is different in quite a few of our fractions. So what we need to do is we need to turn them all into the same denominator. So we need to find a number that 4, 8 and 2 all divide into. And this one is pretty easy because they all divide into 8. So I'm going to turn my 3/4 into eighths. So to get from 4 to 8, I've doubled it, so I need to do the same to the top. So 6/8. Well, this one's already in eighths, so I can move on to my halves. So to get from 2 to 8, I've multiplied it by 4. So I need to do the same to the top. And then my 1/2, again, to get into eighths, I've times it by 4 on the bottom, so I have to do the same to the top. So 4/8. Now all of my numbers are in eighths. It's pretty straightforward to put them in order from smallest to biggest. Remember to use the purple numbers that were given to you in the question. My smallest fraction listed is 1/8. The next smallest in my list would be my 4/8, which is 1/2. The next smallest in my list would be my 5/8. Then our 6/8, which were 3/4. And finally your 8/8, which were 2/2. A whole one. In this question we have to work out which fraction is equivalent to a half. So to put it into quarters, 2 to get to 4, I've doubled it. So I simply double the top to give me 2. 2 to get to 8, I've times it by 4. So I must do the same to the top to give me 4. And to get from 2 to 12, I times it by 6. So I must do the same to the top to give me 6. So 1/2 is equivalent to 2/4, which is equivalent to 4/8, which is the exact same and equivalent to 6/12. In this question we have to work out what fractions are equivalent to 2/3. I'm going to put it into 6ths, 9ths and 12ths. To get from 3 to 6, I've doubled it, so I times it by 2 and must do the same to the top. To get from 3 to 9, I've multiplied it by 3, so again I do the multiplying of 3 by 3 to the top. To get from 3 to 12, I've multiplied it by 4, so I must multiply my top by 4 also to give me 8. So 2/3 is equivalent to 4/6, equivalent to 6/9, which is equivalent to 8/12. In this question, we need to work out which fractions are equivalent to 3/4. I'm going to put it into eighths and into 12ths. To get from 4 to 8, I have doubled it, so I must double my top number. To get from 4 to 12, I've multiplied it by 3, so I must multiply my top number by 3, which gives me 9. So we can tell that 3/4 are equivalent to 6/8 and equivalent to 9/12. In this question we need to put in the less than or the greater than symbol between the two fractions. Now it's made tricky because the fractions both have different denominators. So we need to put them into the same fraction with the same denominator. So I'm going to turn my half into quarters. To get from 2 to 4, I've doubled it, so I do the same to the top. So we've got 2/4 and 3/4. Well, 2/4 is obviously less than 3/4. My second question, I'm going to turn my quarters into eighths. To get from 4 to 8, I've doubled it, so I have to do the same to the top, which gives me 2. So we've got 2/8 and 3/8, and 2/8 is obviously less than 3/8. Again, in this question, we have to put in the less than or the greater than sign. Made tricky because the denominators are different for each fraction. So my first question, my 5/10 and my 3/5. Well, I'm going to turn my 3/5 into tenths. So I doubled the bottom 5 to make it 10, so I need to double the top. So then we've got 5/10 and 6/10. Well, 5/10 are less than 6/10. My second question, 4 twelfths and 1 quarter. So I'm going to turn my quarter into twelfths. So to get from 4 to 12, I've multiplied it by 3. I have to do the same to the top. So I end up with 4 twelfths are greater than 1 quarter, because 1 quarter is 3 twelfths. On this slide, we have to simplify each of the fractions into smaller numbers and smaller fractions. So number 1, 7 fourteenths. So we need to find a number that divides into both 7 and 14. And in this occasion, it is 7. So 7 into 14 goes twice. 7 into 7 goes once. Number 2, we've got 6 eighteenths. So we need to find a number that divides into both 6 and 18. And this one, 6 divides into it. So if I divide the bottom by 6 to give me 3, I have to divide the top by 6 to give me 1. In question 3, we have 5 twentieths. Again, we need to find a common number that divides into both 5 and 20. And in this time, it is 5. So 20 divided by 5 will give me 4. 5 divided by 5 gives me 1. Question 4. We need a number that divides into 2 and divides into 8. And this time it is 2. So 8 divided by 2 gives me 4. 2 divided by 2 gives me 1. Number 5. A little bit trickier, but we're looking for a number that divides into 10 and divides into 6. Well, they're both even numbers, so I'm going to go with the number 2. So I'll divide the bottom by 2 to give me 8. I'll divide the top by 2, which gives me 5. My last question, 4 twentieths. But I need to find a number that divides into both 4 and 20, and 4 divides into both. So 20 divided by 4 gives me 5. 4 divided by 4 gives me 1. Then we've got a whole slide filled with equivalent fractions. For number 1, 7 fourteenths are equivalent to 1/2. Number 2, 6 eighteenths equivalent to 1/3. 3, 5 twentieths are equivalent to 1 quarter. 4, 2 eighths are equivalent to 1 quarter. 5, 10 sixteenths are equivalent to 5 eighths. And number 6, 4 twentieths are equivalent to 1/5. With these questions, we have to match a fraction on the left with a fraction on the right. We begin at the top. We've got 3 ninths. Well, 3 into 9 goes 3 times. So that makes 3 1/3 of 9. The second one, 4 eighths. 4 into 8 goes twice, making 4 1/2 of 8. Third one, 10 into 100 goes 10 times, making 10 1/10 of 100. Fourth one, 6 into 24 goes 4 times, making 6 1/4 of 24. And the last one, hopefully they match up. 5 into 40 goes 8 times, making 5 1/8 of 40. Sometimes it helps to see an equivalent fraction visually to understand. So in my first circle, we've got 1/2. In my second circle, I've got 2 quarters shaded. This perfectly illustrates how 1/2 is the same as 2 quarters. With this illustration, my first square on my left, it is divided up into 8 pieces. And a quick count, you can see that 4 of them have been shaded in black. My second square, it's divided into 2 pieces with 1 shaded in. So 4 eighths are equivalent to 1/2. We have to find the missing number that will complete the fraction. So to get from 5 to 100, I've multiplied it by 20. So I must do the same to the top and multiply it by 20, giving me 20. To get from 3 to 8, we've multiplied it by 6. So we have to do the same to the top and multiply that by 6 to give me 6. To get from 35 down to 7, we've divided it by 5. So we must do the same to the top number and divide it by 5 to get 4/7. To get from 40 to 8, we've divided it by 5. So again we have to do the same to the top, which gives me 5/8.